Yes.
I told her, I said, the proof is in the pudding. Let's go get the DNA.
So this is the DNA test, and it says the probability of relatedness is 96.7%.
That's my granddaughter. If she's nothing else, she's my...
Do you have a secret sister?
I believe I do have a sister out
Did you
there.
ever see Janet where you thought she was pregnant?
Yes. When the marriage was annulled, that Janet was pregnant. And James believed that as well.
For years, there's been low-key chatter about Janet Jackson and that lightning-fast marriage to James DeBarge. People saying they had a secret baby in the 80s that Janet was allegedly forced to give up. The kind of story that never really died. It just stayed buried until now. Things are starting to stir again, and the rumors, they're louder than ever. Is this finally the moment where long-hidden family secrets come crawling into the spotlight? James is back, pushing the idea that he and Janet had a baby together while she was blowing up in her career. Before Janet ever got involved with James DeBarge, she was linked to none other than Magic Johnson. Back in 1983, at the American Music Awards in LA, cameras caught something that had people talking then, and still talking now. One pic showed Magic with his arms wrapped around Janet, and in another, they were full-on locking lips. Here's where it gets wild. Magic was 24 years old, and Janet, just 16. That age gap alone raised major eyebrows, especially when those photos popped back up in 2020. People started asking real questions, like what was really happening in Janet's world back then? Right after all that, Janet jumped into a relationship with James DeBarge. And by 1984, at just 18 years old, she eloped with him. People close to her said she didn't marry for love. She married to escape. Her dad, Joe Jackson, had a tight grip on her life, total control freak vibes. Of course, Joe was furious about the marriage and tried everything to shut it down. But even without Joe's interference, that marriage was headed for disaster. James was deep in the grip of substance struggles. And Janet, she went from being a rising star to acting like his nurse, constantly chasing him down and dragging him back home. She later said she'd find pills stashed all around the house. She'd grab them and try to flush them. Meanwhile, James would be diving to the floor, trying to snatch them back. Straight up chaos. And don't forget, Janet was barely out of her teens during all of this. 18 years old and already tangled in this wild mess. So the streets were buzzing with talk that Janet had a baby with James. Some say she lost it, others claim she gave it away. But when you ask Janet, she shuts it down hard, says the whole thing is completely made up and there's never been a baby, not even close. But here's where it starts to get real sketchy. Folks who were around during that time, especially fans of both the DeBarge family and Janet, swear they saw pics of her and James where she looked a good 5 or 6 months pregnant. No baby announcement, no explanations, just mystery. And then there's this wild moment people swear happened during the American Music Awards. Janet was on stage with her brothers, and they say her stomach was definitely showing. Tito even tried to cover it with his jacket, holding it over his arm just right, but people still caught the belly. One woman said her aunt worked at a convalescent hospital where Janet's grandmother stayed, and she claims Janet came in clearly pregnant. She couldn't say whether Janet lost the baby or hid it, but she was sure that belly was real. Janet was definitely pregnant. At least that's what some folks are still yelling. And the loudest voice? James DeBarge himself. He's been riding hard on this claim for years. He first spilled the tea in a prison letter back in 2012, sent to none other than Dr. Conrad Murray. Yep, the same doctor tied to Michael Jackson's death. And ever since, James won't drop it. He still swears there's a secret Jackson DeBarge child out there. Now Janet, she's not having it. In her documentary, she straight up said there's no way she could have had a baby without her dad knowing. Joe Jackson was all up in her life. Nothing got past him. According to Janet, the pregnancy talk started back in 1984 while she was filming the TV show Fame. She said folks noticed changes in her body and jumped to conclusions. But Janet explained she had just started using oral contraceptives, which at the time were known to cause weight gain and fluid retention from the hormone levels. estrogen and progestin. That's what Janet said was behind her weight gain after starting birth control pills. But back then, a lot of people, especially younger fans, saw the change and instantly thought, she's pregnant. And that one rumor? It snowballed into all kinds of wild, messy stories. In her documentary, Janet broke it all down. She talked about how folks started spinning tales that she secretly had a baby girl and handed her off to her sister to raise in secret.
They were saying that I had a child and I kept it secret. How could I keep a child from their father? I could never do that. That's not right. First they were saying my niece Brandy was my daughter and that I gave it to Jackie to raise. And then because Randy's daughter looks so much like me, then they started saying it was Savannah.
Then came the whispers that her brother Jackie's adopted daughter, Brandy, who joined the family in 1982, was actually Janet's hidden child. And if that wasn't enough, people even started pointing at Randy's daughter, Savannah, saying she looked too much like Janet not to be hers. But it didn't stop there. Oh no. Even decades later, fans and gossip blogs kept digging, trying to piece together this so-called secret baby mystery like a real-life soap opera. People started matching timelines, comparing old photos, and even pulling out family resemblance theories like they were on a mission. There were online threads with side-by-side photos of Savannah, Brandy, and Janet, analyzing jawlines, cheekbones, and eye shapes like forensic experts. Some were convinced that one of those girls had to be Janet's daughter. The obsession hit a point where every young Jackson family member became a maybe in the baby drama. And the wildest part? Even though Janet has denied the story over and over again, people still refuse to let it go. It's like the mystery has a life of its own, and no matter what Janet says, some folks are determined to believe that secret child is out there somewhere. And just when you think it couldn't get messier, boom! A woman named Tiffany White popped up claiming she was the secret daughter of Janet Jackson and James DeBarge. She came forward saying she had been adopted and believed her real parents were none other than Janet and James. The internet went nuts. Tiffany even did interviews, saying she looked like the Jacksons and had always felt something was missing in her life. James's mother, Ederline DeBarge, added fuel to the fire by saying she believed Tiffany could be her granddaughter. That's right, James's mom was backing her up. But hold up, Janet didn't even blink. Her team came forward quick, denying everything, and then came the DNA test. The results? Tiffany was not the daughter of James DeBarge. Case closed, or so we thought. Because even after the test, some fans still weren't buying it. They said, this could have been covered up.
I know that her family had a huge influence on her. And, you know, if she was pregnant, the only thing that I can think of was that they felt that she still had a very long career ahead of her, and they didn't want anything to hinder that.
Janet made it clear, while people were busy whispering about secret babies, she was battling real problems behind closed doors. Her short-lived marriage to James DeBarge was drowning in his addiction, and their wedding night, it was straight up heartbreaking. She remembered coming back to their hotel in Grand Rapids after they tied the knot. James looked at her and said, "Okay, I'll be right back." Janet, just 18, sat alone in that room for 3 hours, and he never came back. That's not a honeymoon. That's a red flag waving in neon. She said she tried to focus on the good in him. She wanted to believe in that version of James. But deep down, she knew he needed serious help, and she just wasn't the one who could save him. Luckily, not everyone bought into the wild gossip. Her co-star, Debbie Allen, backed her up in the doc, saying those rumors were flying like hash in a diner. Where's the baby? Nobody ever saw a baby. That's what people close to Janet kept saying. They claimed she was around them every single day. No signs of a newborn, no signs of a pregnancy vanishing act. So where was this so-called secret child supposed to be hiding? But here's the thing. Even after Janet addressed the rumors, folks weren't satisfied. They started picking apart every single word she said. Did you catch how weird her phrasing was? Why did she get teary when talking about James, but stayed calm talking about all her other exes? Yeah, the internet was on full detective mode, and she never exactly said, "I did not have a baby." What she did say was that hiding a child from James wouldn't have been right. That line alone had people buzzing. To make it even messier, James's own family is still convinced that baby existed. His daughter, DeBarge, even said she truly believes she has a secret sister out there. Now hold up. Why would Christinia believe so strongly in this unless she knew something? That kind of quiet confidence doesn't come from nowhere. Maybe it wasn't just a hunch. Maybe she heard something. A family whisper? A photo tucked away in a drawer? Something had to spark that belief. DeBarge didn't shy away either. She said straight up that she wants to meet the sister she believes is out there. And it wasn't just a passing comment. She fully backed the decades-long rumor and even suggested that Janet's powerful family might have had a hand in keeping the secret locked down. She hinted that with the Jacksons' level of influence and control, burying the truth wouldn't have been hard, especially to protect Janet's booming career. And guess what? It wasn't just Christinia and James talking. His sister Bunny DeBarge also jumped in, and she dropped a bombshell. Bunny claimed she saw Janet pregnant with her own eyes. She said Janet was suddenly pulled from the spotlight, and when she popped back up, the baby bump was gone. But no baby ever appeared. Now, with Christinia feeling it in her gut and Bunny claiming she witnessed it firsthand, that's starting to feel like way too much to brush off as coincidence. And let's not forget, James's brother, DeBarge, once did a radio interview and he backed the story too. Said plain and simple, the child is real.
I'm sure he feels betrayed. I'm sure he feels sad. I'm sure he feels disappointed. I'm sure he feels like he was robbed of that relationship with his daughter. But at the same time, I know my dad loves Janet till this day, and he doesn't want to hurt her.
Then there's James's mother. She didn't just believe it. She took it all the way by doing a DNA test with a woman named Tiffany White, who came forward claiming to be the secret daughter of Janet and James. So here's how it all ended, at least for now. Another DNA test came through and it showed that James DeBarge was not Tiffany White's father. But even after that, James didn't back down. He said he knows there was a baby, and he's still holding on to the hope that one day he'll find out the truth. Word is, James is still out here searching, not for attention, but for closure. Some folks believe Janet may have had a miscarriage or stillbirth and just doesn't want to talk about it, which, honestly, is her right. Pain like that runs deep, and not everyone wants to relive it. But then, the bigger question hits, did the Jacksons cover it all up to protect Janet's image? Was she pressured into silence? Did she even have the baby at all? Or is the entire DeBarge family caught up in one big fantasy? This whole secret baby saga is wild. So hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe to stay locked in. You won't want to miss what's next on our radar.